have an assistant, you have people working with you. But the way that we've done it is we've leaned out to a point where our content is, we come up with our own ideas. We create our own thumbnails. Our thumbnail idea is very, very simple. We don't have to really do much. It's just text. We've streamlined our business in a way that makes it so that we don't have to spend more Bitcoin than we need to. And that works out great. Of course, there are businesses who can add more value, and that's perfectly fine. That's nothing against that. But we've found a way to just get as much Bitcoin as we can, and that's our way of doing it. And I think over time, more and more personal businesses, personal brands will be doing this. You're going to see that the people who have too much overhead may start cutting down just to save more Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is hard money and you don't want to give it away. If you give it away, you're giving away your future compounding potential with that money, and you don't want to give that away. You want to keep that as long as you can. So I think that what Bitcoin is going to do again is it's going to decrease the amount of people who are just doing bullshit jobs. It's going to end that era of bullshit jobs. People are going to be working, maybe building houses and growing food, doing things that actually make a difference in the world, because that's the things. Those are the things that are going to actually make a tangible change in how the world works. And that's how I think that Bitcoin is going to change the entire world.
Yeah, I mean, the fiat system perpetuates these cycles of people will say, oh, there's easy money, there's excess liquidity in the system, and then it's tightening. And when there is easy money, when money is easy to acquire through debt or other means, it's not just workers, it's just not just the individuals that end up doing bullshit jobs. There's bullshit businesses. There's companies that can expand beyond what they, beyond the merit of their idea or of their product or service. And, you get things like Theranos, and they just, it's just a fraud, a fake it till we make it kind of thing, all funded through VC and easy money environment, the zero interest rate policy. And then you have, you almost have like these cycles, and then the money tightens, and then these businesses begin to have to lay people off and say, you know what, our pie in the sky idea is actually nonsense. And then, it all tightens and constricts, and you have this real instability with the job market, with the economy, based on this concept of continued growth. And that's sort of flawed as well. Like, the idea that there's just always going to be continued growth is that actually reality? Like, maybe it doesn't make sense to continue to grow in one sphere if there's no natural demand for it, except that people have easy money. So Bitcoin actually brings hard money, the idea of hard money, of capped money, of not the interest rate cycles changing everything constantly, actually brings stability and allows people to build something slowly and grow over time, and actually create something that provides value to the individual. Because if they don't, they go out of business, or they aren't able to find work as an individual. And that's actually way more stable than these kind of boom and bust cycles that are actually created by the fiat system.
I think this one, what Rajat said, was super interesting, because it got me back to how I was working before I started my whole podcast. Literally, I want to say like 30% of the time, you don't really do anything in your job. You are required to come at the workplace, and you have to work there, and you're getting paid for like 40 hours, 45 hours, 38 hours, depending on where you are and what you do. Some might even go to 50 or 60 hours. But you're not working all the time, and you're doing a lot of meetings that have no meaning whatsoever. Like, I hated those meetings, like the Monday morning meetings where we go in like a self-help group all together, and everyone says like how the weekend was and what they're doing this week, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care whatsoever what you're doing this week, if it doesn't affect my work. And so there's a lot of inefficiencies, I think, when the money is propped up. And what happens now with my business, I'm only doing exactly what makes sense and what brings my company, my family, myself value, and everything else is just like noise. And it's still even in a one person business, you find weird things that you can get rid of and make more efficient. But yeah, the bigger it gets and the more feared it gets and the closer it gets to the state also, the more ridiculous it gets. Like, oh, like we show up to show up in times like, I think this is like a big thing, to just like be very inefficient with it.
Well, there's that cliche of, the municipal roadworks, and there's 5 people standing around and 1 person digging a hole, right? And it's, why is there 5 people standing around managing 1 person's work, right? It's completely, I mean, it's geared to be inefficient almost. It seems.
Yeah, part of it, I think, is also to just keep the real estate market propped up, right? Like
and the stock Ponzi scheme as well, right?
Yeah.
It's all part of everyone's retirement funds. They can't have that go bust.
Yeah, exactly. And then with what I meant by real estate, I get what you're saying with stocks, but what I meant with real estate is that they want us to go into the office so that there's space that's being used and occupied, and we don't have to change it to the cheapest use case for that real estate. Like using it as a rental property is probably the worst use case that you can get, because there's a limit to how much money you can get from a tenant. Whereas if you use it as commercial, this is something that actually I used to be a realtor. For anybody who doesn't know, this is something that we went through. We did the
You were a
numbers.
realtor? I didn't know that.
I used to be. I'm not anymore. I used to be. But yeah. So the thing that we would go through is trying to find the most profitable way to use a piece of real estate, and land as a living space was not it. It was not it. It was businesses, because commercial businesses, you can charge them as much as you want to.
Yeah.
And they'll just charge their customers more. And they'll keep charging their customers more. Whereas, let's say, for example, you have a random person who has a limited income. It's not like they're getting exponentially a better income every year. They just have a fixed income, and that's how they can pay. So changing all these buildings to residential real estate would massively knock down the value of those buildings.
Interesting.
It's crazy.
It kind of makes me think of the Office. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the American Office, but there's a part in that where Oscar's trying to explain something to Michael about their budget and how they're below their budget and how they need to spend more money just so they get more money next year. Like, it's such a crazy concept, but that's like how every business operates, especially if they're being subsidized by like a government, which is even more unfair of a market than a traditional business. But it's so true. Like, you have to spend money on things you don't need just so you get allocated the same amount next year. Like, it just couldn't make any less sense, but that's the world that we grew up in. I'm sure all 5 of us worked at jobs where that was kind of the case.
Yeah, look at the federal government itself, right? Sorry, Robin. I was going to say, look at the federal government itself. I mean, it's, in the United States, I'm sure they're all generally the same, right? It's like, if you don't use your budget at the end of the year, you're doing whatever you can. I mean, I know a lot of pilots, like in the military or whatever, and there's like, they send us out on a mission, whatever, training runs. There's like, hey, just go, go screw around, right? We've seen George Bodine talk about it. A lot of us have talked to him or interviewed him, right? And he's like, yeah, it's a joke. End of the year, and here we go. You get the gas, go whatever. And that's just the government not incentivized to do anything for the average person. It's just a great microcosm of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, he told this great story where they had to use fuel in a jet, and he went out in this jet and he crashed that jet because he had to use it. Was an amazing story. Yeah. But I love that scene of The Office. I probably have seen it already like 3 times with the lemonade stand of like, if mommy and daddy give you $5 and like you want to have $5 again next year, but you only used $4, use that $1 for something else, because otherwise you only get $4 next year. And I'm like, shit, like that's so crazy.
It just creates so much waste. That's what it does. And I think that a return to a hard money standard more than anything is just going to clean up the world. We're going to be able to make whatever we want to with the 3D printing and technology that we're going to have. we're going to be able to create whatever we need. But I just feel like there's just so much waste. Like, I mean, I go to golf tournaments throughout the summer, and they'll give away prizes, and they think they're doing it to like promote, their business with a logo on or something, but it just goes like straight into the trash, and then it goes to the garbage dump. And it's like, there was no use for that in any situation in my life. But they have these budgets, these marketing budgets, and these whatever budgets they have this year, they need to get the same amount. They need to spend it, essentially waste it, just so they can get the same next year. It has nothing to do with like what's actually needed. What would be more beneficial? Something that's going to last 5 years, or a trinket that I'm going to throw in the garbage? Even if you have to spend a little more this year and less next year, that just seems like a better business decision. And that's, to me, value-added economics. And I think that's where we're going back to now with hard money.
It also go ahead.
Go ahead.
Forrest, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it also points to what we are seeing as being valuable now, right? Like people are saying data is the new oil, right? And it's when you have data and you're able to aggregate it properly, you're able to find those inefficiencies and cut down on your marketing budget and see that, there's intentional spend here when it's not needed and not productive. And those businesses are able to use that. And it's the same thing for AI, right? It's all technology is to create more efficiencies. And, we've been talking about governments, and maybe you could speculate that there's an intentional inefficiency in there, but, it goes to show that some of the most valuable companies in the world are all, data related, AI related, and that's all about creating additional efficiencies. And I think, as we've all alluded to it, we've all talked about it, but as we get more onto a hard standard monetary network, like with Bitcoin, if you are not as efficient as you can be, somebody else will just eat your lunch. There's no ability to be inefficient because there's no easy access to money. There's a real cost to the money, and you have to go and convince somebody to give that money to you. There's no other way to acquire it. It doesn't just get printed out of thin air.
I have a question for you guys. How much of the inefficiencies in corporations is because of the money printer, and how much of it is because they are just very big corporation where it's very hard to keep every single employee as efficient as like in a free man startup?
It's a great question. It's hard to answer, but I think that's what I was talking about there is with more data and there's Palantir is basically like a government agency, but their entire business and same with actually Strategies, BI business and Snowflake, their business is to take data and figure out where the efficiencies can be made and where they aren't. So I think it's almost like I'm sure maybe you guys have had this before, but I've had managers when I worked as an employee, and it was actually inefficient, them trying to micromanage and create more efficiency out of my work. And it creates more inefficiency by doing that. So I think there's a balance to be made there. But without a doubt, there's going to be things that fall through the cracks, even with the efficiency technology of data aggregation.
I was going to mention, I think a lot of the companies that exist today probably wouldn't exist at all. Right. Let's say, for example, with fake money, you have companies like McDonald's. Oh, actually, I don't know if you guys know about this, but the biggest
used to work in McDonald's.
Sorry,
you used to work at McDonald's.
Oh yeah, I actually used to. That's the funny
No
part.
way.
I actually used to. That's so funny. I used to work at McDonald's. I used to work at Walmart. I used to work at a bunch of different banks. But one thing that I've noticed is that there was a statistic that said in the U.S. the biggest beneficiaries of SNAP, like the food stamps, are at one point number 1 and 3 were McDonald's and Walmart. So what's happening here is their wages are essentially being subsidized by money printing, right? So the employees, if they didn't get SNAP benefits, they probably wouldn't want to work at McDonald's. They probably wouldn't want to work at Walmart because there's so much risk in working there. You're dedicating your time, your effort, your energy to working at those companies, but those companies they're giving you a wage that's too small for you to even sustain your lifestyle. So there wouldn't be enough workers, and those companies would just die without money printing. Like that's the thing that we're fighting against here. If there was no money printing, I bet you Walmart and McDonald's dead within a decade easily. And then you're going to have all these mom and pop shops that replace them, because those mom and pop shops will probably be like what we said. They'll be efficient. They'll be lean. They'll have their own employees. They'll have their family working there, and they'll actually care about the product that they offer. They'll care about their customers. Like you'll have people coming in saying, "Oh, the usual," and somebody would come in and they'd say, and that's what they would get. Like they'd know exactly what to get for this customer. It's like those coffee shops that are run by mom and pops, right? If you go to Starbucks, nobody gives a shit about you, right? The person that works there doesn't care about you, right? But that's what happens when you have these mega corporations. Whereas with mom and pop shops, they understand their customer. They know what their customer wants, and they can actually take risks. They can be like, "Hey, I made this new recipe. You want to try it?" And they'll give it to you, and they'll get your opinion on it, right? And they actually build a relationship with you. Whereas in today's economy, because we have this fake money, we have fake employees, people who don't actually give a shit about the company, fake hours being put into the company. People aren't actually, like somebody said in the comments, they work longer than 40 hours a week. I doubt it. I mean, real hard work, you're probably not spending more than 40 hours. That probably includes your lunch, your breaks, your commute time, right? That you're not working at those times. Whereas with a mom and pop shop, if you like, all of us are content creators. We put in our time. It probably doesn't take more than maybe 5 to 6 hours of getting our work done every single day. Maybe a little bit more than that, maybe a little bit less, and you can outsource the work to decrease the amount of time that you put in. But you're not spending, I don't think you're spending like 70, 80 hours at work, right? I don't. I spend a lot less time at work, to be honest. So over time, we're going to see it gets leaner and leaner because the money isn't fake anymore and people actually value it.
They're probably watching the show right now while they're at work.
Yeah, exactly.
So how hard are you working?
Right.
That's
hardly working.
Yeah, exactly. What do you guys, to play devil's advocate, to have some of the sports radio banter back and forth, what do you guys think, like when we extend this down the line, right? I always think of like the zoo animal, right? Like the cage animal, or like, people are being fed and there's not much to do other than just kind of like walk around your cage all day. I know the argument, let's bat that around. The argument for someone, because like the Freemason, the people that, that started this new world, especially in America, I'm deep in I don't even have the book on me, but the Freemasons, the Puritans, and the secret founding of America. So I'm deep into this. And the central bank, Abraham Lincoln, fighting this thing over and over, John Wilkes Booth, being a free, like all these rabbit holes that you've never taught in government-run schools, right? Let's extrapolate this out, though, into the end game of this world where you have Freemason type stuff, the Marxist types, the Keynesians who say, no, I'm the intellectual, I'm smarter than all of you, and you need to be cattle prodded into working, inflation, et cetera, right? And so if we remove that, because I believe everything you guys are saying, however, let's steel man it and start talking about what happens when a lot of people don't have to work. I mean, we see with AI, with abundance coming everywhere, and Bitcoin accounting for all this and being the accounting mechanism, what happens at the end of the day when there are a lot of people that just aren't working, whether it's the Bitcoin route or the UBI route or whatever? We are rapidly, obviously, as we all know, going towards that world one way or another. What ends up happening? What does that world look like?
I think from my perspective, I would say that eventually all roads lead to Bitcoin either way, or hard money, I should say, not just Bitcoin. But I do think there's, the world won't be able to advance without some sort of UBI, because, I think there's people at both sides of the scale kind of downplaying AI, but also, thinking it's going to do more than it will. And I might be out to lunch here too. But I think that UBI will definitely be a thing. I think what I always go back to is like, were we put on earth here to wring groceries through a till? Were we put on earth here to do these jobs that nobody really likes doing? They just needed to do it to eat food and to put a roof over their head. I don't think so. So I think the whole dynamic, people won't need to work if they don't want to, but they can actually do things that they enjoy doing, whatever that looks like to somebody. And I think that as long as we have Bitcoin, as long as there's something there, like that's, hard, let's say, people will be working, because there's people like us who, even though we'll have the option to work or not work, we're going to choose to work because that's what we were put here to do, I believe anyways, is to, provide and add as much value and to help people and to teach people and to, have some sort of purpose in life. So definitely, even today, if you think about how many people out there who are just strictly on the government's tit without any sort of motivation for anything, those people will thrive in that environment. But I think that overall there will be UBI, they'll get paid, but they're still being, those units are still being created out of thin air. And so all of that will still gravitate towards Bitcoin and the value that goes into each Satoshi. And I think the people who are willing to work are going to do extremely well in that scenario. That's just kind of my take on it.
I think there's an interesting perspective where, like one of the middle elite people now, like the middle crowned people now, are way richer than the richest man alive like 500 years ago, and could do way more than the richest person 500 years ago. It's like he can fly in planes, he can Zoom with like, and he can talk with an AI, with ChatGPT and all of that. Like, he has a lot more abilities to his hands with like almost no money than anyone could have ever dreamed of 500 years ago, even like 100 years ago. And so I think that the overall wealth standard will increase over time, but I think we will always have a ranking system. And the ranking system will somehow be related to wealth and status. And so why do we buy watches or like whatever? Like, we want to pursue the value. Or like, why do you buy the newest like 17 Pro with like this orange thing in the background? Like, you want to show, like, if you get it, like, people see it. That's a real reason why people buy it, because it's not that much better than the 14 Pro that is like 1/4 of the price. And so I think that's kind of where I'm at, where I don't know if we get UBI or not. I don't really have an opinion on that. I just know that people will always find something to do. And the thing that we are now calling work, people 500 years would have not called it work. Like, we are sitting on a chair and typing like that on the keyboard. People 500 years ago would have been like, that's work, like that's nothing, like that's not real work, like that's like, you don't do anything. I mean, what are we doing? Like, what I can only speak for me. Like, the whole day, what I do is standing here on my desk and talking in a camera. Like, that's like 95% of my work. Either I talk with a business partner, a freelancer that helps me out, or I'm in front of the camera doing the podcast or this live stream. And then there's like 5% where I have, maybe a little bit higher, where I'm in deep thoughts, like try to research things, but I don't really count that as work. It's more like research. And so all of that would have not, some people now would not count that as work. Like, some people say, like, you don't work, you just speak in a camera, like that's not real work. And so, like, the definition is like, what even is work? What are we counting as work? And so that's just like in perspective I wanted to bring in.
Rajat, you're muted.
Oh, I just realized. Sorry. I think the value that we're creating, it's important. There's a reason why people want to watch these videos, right? And there's a reason why people want to build human connection, right? There's a lot of people watching our videos who they know who we are in a way, right? And it's because we're real people, we're creating real content, and we're adding it to the internet. We're just basically telling them what our thoughts are. That's it, right? And that content creation is so valuable, and I think anybody can do it, right? That's what I think. Anybody can do it in the world. Anybody in the world can do this. They have a cell phone. You can make videos and you post it on the internet, right? And you can talk about anything. You can find people who relate to you from anywhere in the world. Keep in mind, there are 8 billion people. We're all going through the same thing. You can point out patterns. For example, Jor, I know you really like that book, Napoleon Hill. What's it called?
Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, and like the point of that book, from what I think I listened to the audiobook for that one, and the point of it is basically to point out patterns that Napoleon Hill went through. We can all do that. We all have our own experiences. We all have our own way of thinking. And I think that's extremely valuable. People may not think of that as work, but I would say that this is more valuable than the work that I was doing in a bank. And I was working in the financial services industry. The work that I was doing there was a waste, because I was working for billionaires to get them even richer. And I don't want to do that. I'd rather have an impact on 5,000 people who have as much wealth as that billionaire combined, over helping that billionaire get richer. And I think that the impact that we're making here is much bigger than the impact that you'd make from, let's say, 9 to 5, or obviously creating food is what we've done is we've scaled our skills up, right? We can go start a farm and we can create like one apple at a time, for example, one orange at a time, or whatever it is, apples, oranges. We can grow cows and animals, but we've scaled our skills up to a point where we can serve multiple people at the same time. And I think this is very valuable too, because we're helping people to save money. People may not think of this as work, but it is at the end of the day.
This is really interesting. Sorry to jump in here, but I think it's very important that we define what work really is, because hard work can mean a lot. And you can say like, I work really hard, but you don't gain anything. So for example, if you're a factory worker somewhere in China and you work 18 hours a day, you could say you work really hard. But then Elon Musk does 1 hour of work and he makes more money than half China does in like 1 year. And so it's like work, like who works harder, like the 1 hour of Elon Musk, or the half of China for a whole year? In one definition it's half of China, in the other definition it's Elon Musk, because he has the outcome also. So how do we measure work? Do we measure work just by input? Because then you can like that's a silly metric to measure, like just like pure hours. So you have to measure how hard someone is working, not only by the input, but also by what actually comes out of it, like what is actually the leverage that you have to work.
Leverage is key there.
I think it should be just impact, right? Just impact. How many people you help, how many people's lives you change.
How demand you are, how much demand there is for what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah. And Robin, you mentioned leverage there, which is key. And Rajat, you also talked about how the work you do is, and impactful is a really good way to put it. The work you do now is more impactful and more valuable than the work you did when you worked at the bank, right? Even though, money is one way to value it, or like how much money you're creating, the wealth and this kind of stuff, as Robin alluded to as well. But, by presenting your ideas online and reaching thousands of people instead of working individually with one person, you are leveraging the technology. We're leveraging technology right now by being able to stream this to whoever we're streaming it to, post it online, platforms, engage with all of our audience. The leverage helps create more value because it's being able to be interpreted and seen by more people. I think that's definitely part of it. I did want to quickly, while I got the mic here, I just wanted to go back to the UBI topic as well. I just wanted to share my thoughts on it. I'm not convinced that UBI is something that's going to exist long term in the future, because it's still fiat centered.
Yep.
There's still this idea of, like, again, and Wild Thing commented in the comments here, who or what funds UBI? I think that's really the question there, because if it's sort of some, like, there's this concept of like, you'll get Fed tokens and you can redeem those for like, it's like 1984, like Victory Gin is like the thing that the guy drinks, and it's because it's like you get a certain allotment per month, and it's like the government funded thing.
Subsidized.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's essentially what I see happening is, if we go down the route of some UBI type thing, there's going to be a massive class divide between people who have wealth and people who are dependent on the UBI, because you're not going to be able to get ribeye steak with the UBI, but you can go to the farmer or the store or whatever, spend Bitcoin or hard money and get the ribeye steak. But you're just not, it's literally going to be programmed into the UBI currency that you can only redeem it for certain things, which is similar to kind of, it kind of looks similar to what we have with welfare and SNAP and these kind of things already, to some degree, which is kind of where I see more of that happening. But I don't think, I'm not sure these things can end up coexisting at a certain point, because it's always, UBI is based on theft to some degree, right? And again, he said, we tried that with ZERP here. Was it ZERP? No, that's zero interest. Tried it with CERB, which is like the COVID benefit or whatever, and it did lead to massive price inflation. So that was just a delayed theft to the individual from the debasement of currency, which is what inflation is. So how do you have UBI? How do you have voluntary UBI that isn't stealing from people? I'm not sure that exists.
There is something also to that aspect. I just the comment just brought it up, which is I think something we should also like bring into this conversation, because you're using a fiat token that has all the negative aspects of a fiat token, not just the monetary one. Obviously, the monetary aspect of the fiat token is very horrible, but there's like more to that with like privacy, surveillance, and all of that. Like it's a good aspect where maybe the monetary, even if there's a UBI that everyone gets paid, maybe you don't even want to accept it because the monetary value is so small versus the disadvantage of accepting it and spending it and giving your data away is actually bigger than what you're gaining monetarily.
Yeah.
What do you think, Brandon? What's your thoughts on UBI?
Yeah, I mean, you guys all make great points. It's all predicated on belief, at the end of the day, right? Like this is all predicated on someone's going to take the dollar or some fiat currency, UBI or whatever it is, right? And everyone famously says that it's the aircraft carrier backs it up, the barrel of a gun backs it up. And it has to. It does, in the sense that it has to, because it's the only way to get all these humans to just, blindly just be like, okay, well, our IRS or whatever tax agency in your country is just, beating down your door. But at the end of the day, hyperinflation is just a loss of confidence in the dollar. And so I think this game could play for a long, long time. It's played way longer, even the last 15, 17 years. It's played way longer than I ever imagined it could go on. So I've kind of been black-pilled in the sense of like, yeah, this could go on for another 5, 10, 15, 30, 50 years. Who knows? Because as long as humans believe the opposite of what we all believe, it can keep going. Yeah. And if this number of us shrinks, of people who believe like this, that it's a belief structure and people believe they have faith in the dollar still, they have faith in fiat currencies, then it can keep going. And it's just like, you guys have nailed it. I mean, like, right? Like bonds is the root word of bondage. If you keep giving the government currency, and that's why they set up all these programs, right? They set up all these structures like the, automatic, we're going to match your thing here in America with 401ks and all these things. They're all just structures designed to keep perpetuating that system without people thinking about it. And then you're on the fiat hamster wheel because of inflation in the first place. So you can't even get off to think about it for 2 seconds, what's actually happening, or looking at your paycheck, path of least resistance. So until something, Max Payne's our way out of it, some black swan, some big events, and people are ready, there's so many Bitcoin content creators. They do such a good job, right? All of you guys, everyone. And it's like 2 + 2 = 4. It's very easy to see, but you can lead a horse to water. You can't make someone drink. And until they're ready to accept it. I mean, how many times do we see people say, I get what you're saying, Jor, Robin, Forrest, Rajat, but like, that's the structure, right? It's a mindset. And like, I am 100% convinced, going back to my sports days, right? It's and many of you growing up playing sports, doing different things, right? It's mindset. If you think you can, you will. If you think you can't, you won't. You will find a way. You'll give me every excuse in the book to why it can't happen. And I was talking to Ben Parent about this yesterday, this exact thing. And he's like, yeah, I'm showing people like, oh, it can't, no one uses money, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, here, I'm showing you. I've lived my life for 10 years off of this. Here's how you do it in 2 minutes. The guy's like, and it's like, it's still like the NPCs, non-playable characters, their minds are just cooked. And it's, again, we can get into why that is, right? 100 years of government-run schooling, compulsory schooling, conform, comply, obey, all these things, culture, media, telling you, turn people in if they're going against the narrative, like it just on and on and on. So it's this unraveling that society has to do. But how do you do that? How do you get the train back on the tracks when we're 100 miles from the tracks? Well, it's going to be really hard events. It's not going to creep back slowly. It's going to be these rubber bands snapping and coming back to this. So at the end of the day, it's a belief structure. It's UBI. It's all fake. If people accept it, they'll accept it like that until they don't. And so they want people lose confidence, and the whole thing comes undone. That's the gradually and suddenly. Parker Lewis's book. They will happen. It's just a matter of when does it happen? When does people lose that belief? Is it 1%? Is it 3%? 5%? 7% of people that need to lose faith, and then everything's gone.
Yeah, and there's sort of it's incentives, right? And if there's people that are accepting UBI or some form of it that already exists in the form of welfare or government assistance, they have the incentive to continue to believe that it's worth something because they're getting something for free. And that thing, isn't worth anything if nobody else believes it. So there's sort of this perpetuation of the belief of it because there's so many people that benefit from the free or cheap money as well.
That's the biggest problem, is that the world's just addicted to free money. That's what it is, right? And it goes back to the Keynesian model of, needing more units to keep the economy going. That's absolute BS, man. Like it's just a straight up lie. It is. And I kind of agree in the sense that I don't think that Bitcoin and fiat coexist forever. But I also agree with Brandon that, it takes a long time for things to play out. And I think it is, even though we have technology now and we have access to way more information, the fact that we're streaming this right now all over the world should speed this up significantly. But it doesn't, because people just have such closed minds about the whole thing. And that's why, to me, I think that it takes a full generation for something like this to shift. And I think that that's kind of what we're living through. Like, we're 17 years into Bitcoin. This should be the only thing that people care about right now. It's the most exciting topic, I think, that exists and has existed for a very long time. It's just there's so many people who still believe in that system, benefit from that system, and don't want to have to work and actually earn money, as opposed to just where they are right now. They're comfortable. It's a very comfy life. You just wake up whenever you want to, you throw on some Netflix, you eat some Cheetos, and you get a check from the government. It's comfortable.
That's what governments do, right? They make money out of thin air. They attract as many possible people who want free money to vote for them, and then they get more and more powerful because they keep getting voted in, and it just takes power away from the people who own assets. The people, well, no, it doesn't take power away from it gives them way more power over everybody who doesn't own assets. I think that's the right way to say it. So it gives them more and more power over the people who don't own assets, because they can control you, right? They can tell you, hey, if you don't take this, then you can't do this, or if you don't do this, then you can't do this. And of course, all the people who are getting free money, they're much easier to manipulate than everybody else. Because let's say, for example, so let's say your government today is saying that we're going to give you free money for doing this. The next government may say, we're not going to do that. And you're not going to vote for them. Why would you? Because you want your free money, and it just makes that system even more powerful. And then that government gets voted in again, and they need more votes for the future because they want to keep printing money, and they give out more free shit, right? And people think that it's helping them, but it's actually hurting them. It's hurting them because they're not building skills. Like I was at a shop a few weeks ago, and the guy was saying, $2,200 a month for free, man. I'd do that all day, every day if I didn't have to work. Like, he was talking about CERB, right? And that's just the kind of system that we built. We built a system where people are getting paid for doing nothing. And why would you want to do anything if you don't have to work to get paid? This is how the system works. This is how it's designed.
There's an amazing video. It has no sound, nothing. It's really just like there's a homeless person and there's a rich guy coming up to him and saying, like, I give you $1 a day if you just like keep standing here. And he keeps on giving him more money and more money, and it just shows him over time, like, he just keeps on standing at that spot, and he gets a nicer suit, he gets a nicer car, but he has to come back every day from like 9 to 5 to keep just standing at that spot to have his compensations all the time. And it really is. This is kind of full circle to what we talked about earlier, where half the time you don't even know what you're actually doing in work. You're in meetings where you're like, do I have an input here? Like, if I'm not in this meeting, does the meeting in any way, shape, or form change? If the answer is no, you probably are completely useless. Is this meeting? You probably are wasting your time and other one's time in that meeting. And I think most meetings could be scaled down from like 20 people to like 3 people, at least in my experience. Like, there was like 3 people that were important in that meeting, and then there were like 8 visitors that were also there and said like yes or no, or like made one comment or something like that. And the more important question is then, okay, if we are all aware of that system, if we're all aware of what's actually going on, how can we as individuals make sure we benefit from that? How can we as individuals make sure that what to do in that situation? Because I go back, because we talked also about like what is work. And I love Alex Hormozi on that specific part, because he said work is output, and output is, what did he say? Output is the volume, so the repetition, what you do, and the leverage. Additionally, like, you have to not only do the hours, but also the leverage, and the leverage is the skill and the efficiency in what you do. So someone could work an hour and produce like $50, and another one works an hour and gets $2,000. It's like it's the same hour, but there's a different leverage to it. And so how can we optimize our efficiency and skill and leverage so our hour gets more valuable, because we have the information about the system that we are currently in? So it was a lot of thoughts, but I think this is really interesting. And then maybe actually, as Rashad said before we started recording, I think this could actually be also a place, the five of us, a place where we also talk about what are the things we can do to benefit from the thing that we already see. Because I think most people that listen here are already kind of convinced that Bitcoin is a good thing. Like I'm not sure if there's anyone in the chat that says like, oh, Bitcoin is stupid, I don't want anything. Like maybe a few of them, but like most of the guys here on the panel, but also in the audience, probably are quite already sold on Bitcoin. It's like, how can you benefit the best way possible if you already know we are going in this Bitcoin hard money, sound money world?
Yeah, I think that, as we're kind of talking through this stuff, it seems to me like we're talking about the belief system here. We're talking about the power of, speaking things into existence almost. And I think that for a lot of Bitcoiners out there here in the chat, watching this later, you probably felt some frustration in the sense of like, it's so obvious what's happening over there. We want to talk about what we're building here. And I think for a lot of people, it's frustrating because nobody's willing to listen to them. And I think that, once we cross this threshold, it might not be a percentage wise of people. I actually think it's going to be a percentage wise in terms of wealth. And so I think that what Bitcoiners out there right now should be focused on, like, we have a lot of Bitcoin podcasts. I think we need 100 times more Bitcoin podcasts, because there's people out there who want to learn this stuff. There's people out there with an open mind who are tuned in right now to this stuff on this frequency. And I think Rajat alluded to it a little bit earlier, but people learn from different people. People resonate with different people. And I think that anybody out there who wants to do that should absolutely do it. Just focus your attention though on the open minds out there, on the people that do want to learn. Because as this thing plays out, we have the biggest institutions in the world, countries, biggest pools of capital are coming into Bitcoin. I don't think anything's going to stop that. So our bags, the people who are here now, this might sound kind of cocky to say, but our bags are going to be pumped whether we like it or not. And I think at that point, not only we don't need a certain amount of numbers, we will have the wealth. And with that wealth, we can start doing different things with it. Just like the fiat wealth has been able to control and manipulate minds for the last 100 years. I think that Bitcoiners are going to kind of shatter that whole model. And we're going to start working towards something that we believe in. And so I think that what I would say to people out there is just keep talking about it, but only focus your energy on the people who have an open mind and want to learn. And eventually, the more people that hop on this train, the faster it happens. But we can't control that. We just can control our own, what we talk about, who we talk about it to. And eventually, I think that economic power will shift to Bitcoiners.
Yeah, everybody here, like every single person here can start their own podcast. And I guarantee you that once you get, or not even podcast, just a video channel, right? You just make videos about talking about anything. You don't even have to talk about Bitcoin, right? You can talk about anything. You talk about money. You talk about the different things that you enjoy personally talking about. I mean, talking about Bitcoin would obviously be very valuable because you'd be able to help a lot of people. You'd probably make a lot of money from it as well. But sometimes people just don't care to make money from social media. I mean, you can even create your own brand, let's say talking about Friends or talking about Breaking Bad, right? Talking about anything really. Like you spend your time watching TV, so make a channel talking about TV. I think that's probably the best way to do it, right? If you talk about something, if you learn more about it, you're probably going to understand it more. Like yeah. I probably didn't understand Bitcoin even I didn't understand a fraction of the things that I understand now because of my YouTube channel. It was almost like my journey of learning. And that's what you're doing. You're thinking through things on YouTube. You're growing in public and you're showing people that this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm thinking about. And other people they'll work with you, right? And what I've been learning more about is how to use social media just to just make a business. And what you're doing with social media is, so let's talk about a regular, typical business. You create a product and you sell it. You try to find an audience after you create the product, after you put in all the research and development. Whereas with social media, you create the audience and then you create the product after. So based on what your audience wants, let's say, for example, if people want a community to talk in, we have a community to talk in, right? We have a paid community where people are willing to pay us to join it and to talk to us and to talk to other people. There's no spam there. What we did was we basically created our own product at the end. We created our own demand, and anybody can do that. That's my point. Anybody can do that. There are people, like I said, talking about Breaking Bad, and they have Patreons, and they're making thousands of dollars a month just talking about Breaking Bad, the show that they like, right? And they're paying their bills because they created this brand and they created this value for other people, and other people found it so valuable that they're willing to pay them for it, to keep them talking about it.
I think there's like an overall message here, because like some might be uncomfortable going in front of like camera or something like that. I think it was never that easy to create something and collect money for that something. Whatever that something is. It can be a digital product, it can be a physical product, it can be a video, an article, a book, like whatever the heck it is. And what I found is it was super scary for me. I will be super honest. The first time I jumped into this entrepreneurship, I did not know if I will make it. I did not have like the income secured, or I didn't have anything secured. Basically, I just like, okay, I have some Bitcoin. I might just live on that a few months. That was my only security that I basically had, and I was just jumping in there. What was interesting, I had to get used to for about 2 months, 3 months, that I can now do whatever I want to do. That was really hard for me to get used to. No more meetings, no more Wednesday morning meetings, Monday morning meetings, all that shit. And then all of a sudden, you have 16 hours a day where you can create whatever you want to create. And then all of a sudden, like it pops in your head, like, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. And you come to the place. And now 2 years after that, just like 2 years in, I have too many ideas that I could possibly do, that I have to say no to ideas that are really good, because I'm limiting my time. And so it's no longer about money. It's no longer about whatever else. It's just like, what is the thing that I really want to do? And I think most people would be surprised if they just stop spending all their time and energy in that weird kind of social construct called business career. They might find themselves like unlocking a new level of thinking, new level of creativity, and they can really create something like really nice. And Bitcoin, the only Bitcoin attachment to that is Bitcoin allows you to do that if you have some savings in that, and allows you to have security.
I think, we're talking about basically what it comes down to me for me is that value for value is the concept, if I had to distill it all the way down. And then and that's sort of like the motto around like Nostr and stuff, which is you create content, people can zap you for your content. And we've talked a lot about YouTube here, but YouTube should be based off of basically it's a combination of video and your interest. As Rajat said, if your interest is watching the show Breaking Bad, if you're able to share your interest in a video format, you're able to have video online, which ends up being like a billboard, which you can have advertisements and different money-making strategies on there. We talk a lot about YouTube, or we're talking about YouTube, we're talking about the internet, right? And so like Substack is writing and your interest, or at least that's like the best way to kind of do it. And then eventually you might end up tailoring your content more to the audience, which is what a lot of people end up doing. But I think it starts with your interest at least, and developing from there. And back to one thing that George said, we need hundreds and thousands of more Bitcoin podcasts, which I 100% agree with. 100% agree with. But we also just need more Bitcoiners creating value. It doesn't have to be Bitcoin podcasts, because you as a Bitcoiner are going to bring that through to whatever you do. If you make, wooden figurines, if you're a whittler, you end up selling those, and you're like, hey, why don't I sell these for Bitcoin? And then that's on your website or in your storefront or whatever. And now you furthered the mission of Bitcoin. It ends up having conversations with people that come into your business, whatever it ends up being. If you can provide more value to the world, and of course you can use the leverage that technology provides you, whether that's AI or the internet or whatever, but if you provide more value to the world and you're a Bitcoiner, the Bitcoin is going to work its way into the consciousness of more individuals, which ends up helping more people and providing them an escape from the fiat system that is robbing them. And as we all know, Bitcoin is this rabbit hole that ends up changing a lot about how you think about life. It gives you a long-term time preference. It leads into diet, lifestyle, all sorts of different crazy avenues and learning experience because of your interest in Bitcoin.
I love that, and it really enables. I think a lot in general. If you are, I think that's the main thing that Bitcoin probably enables for an individual, because we always say like Bitcoin fixes everything. I disagree with that on many levels, but one thing that it does fix, if you're safe in it, it gives you hope that you actually can spend some time more on yourself and less time with someone else that might not deserve your time even, or you just don't want to spend time with those people. It's mind-boggling. Do you guys know about those studies that ask people how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how you like your job? And like most people really hate their job, not only not like it, but like actually hate their job, and they have like a bad feeling on Sunday evening because they know tomorrow they have to go to this place that they really hate. I'm like, it's not jail. Like, you should not feel like that. If you're in jail, like if you're a murderer and you go to jail, and like that's the feeling you should get. But you should not get that feeling just because you're providing value to society. That's not a natural thing to do.
100% agree.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah,
I really.
You have to
I was gonna say that's something that. Oh, when I do my meetings, I do one-on-one meetings with a lot of people, and every single person's like, I want to retire early. When I ask them, what's your goal? Everybody says, I want to retire. I don't want to work anymore. I hate my job. I want to retire. Like if they're 35, they want to retire by 45. If they're 45, they want to retire by 55. If they're 55, they want to retire by 60. Nobody wants to work. That's the main thing that I've seen.
Or work what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah. And this is the critical thing. Yeah, this is the critical thing. Like, I think people want to work. I think like most people actually want to contribute to society, want to contribute to something greater. I think people are not made to lay on the couch and like not do anything. I think people are made to actually do something productive in life. It's just that their definition or like their work is not really work. It's just like BS.
Yeah. All right, guys. I actually got to head out. I have a meeting. You guys can continue. Thanks for having me. That was really great. I enjoyed it.
See you, Rajat.
See you, Rajat.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, it really is like I'm just thinking of everything we've been talking about and listening to what you guys are saying, and it's like the way that I think about it too is like, again, we talked about gradually and suddenly, and there's just this tipping point, but it's the iceberg flipping, but why does it flip? It's black swans, it's dumb things happening, which we can guarantee will continue happening emanating from the governments, people, humans doing dumb things, and this will continue happening. And it's not Wall Street. It's not going to be some president came in. Look, we've had countries do it. We've had Donald Trump here in America say, I love Bitcoin. Did that change things? Did all of a sudden a bunch of people go out and adopt Bitcoin? The guy's got 80 million people that voted for him, yet I don't see any adoption. It's not like people ran out and bought all kinds of Bitcoin because a government employee said that, or the head of a government. And so it's going to be this process of humans getting wrecked over time and finding out there's another option mixed with a demographic shift, like we talked about earlier as well, the boomers passing down their wealth to the younger generations. And oh, by the way, those younger generations, they know the difference between Bitcoin and real money and all of our children, right? We teach them the difference. We didn't have that before. So you mix all these things together of education, more podcasts, more books on Bitcoin, the truth being out there, like you said, Jor, I believe was the one who said it, was just like this, able to go around the world and the education out there mixed with all these things together of time. And it's the Thomas Paine book, the beginning of Common Sense. Time does the heavy lifting, right? Time converts more than reason at the end of the day. And it's when people are ready to drink, they've been fully wrecked, they're on their hands and knees, crawling and begging and saying, no more, no more. Like the government's govern me even harder, and I'm done. And everyone has their different point, and some are earlier than others. And so you mix that all together, and it looks a lot like, and then the last thing I'll say too is what we've been talking about too with the businesses. So now, not only do you have the younger generation, people getting wrecked, black swans, more inflation, more printing, but then you've got Bitcoiners all during this time, the next 10 or 20 years, getting very wealthy. And so what do those people do? They create businesses. They create goods and services. They naturally, some will go to government and start, all these things will start defunding naturally and healing the government and creating a higher standard of living, lower costs over time. And it will be this cycle that happens, but it plays out over 20 years, maybe 10 or 20 more years. So it's been 17, but maybe it takes another 10, 15, 20 years as this all just kind of matriculates. And then the iceberg flips seemingly. You look back and say, oh, the iceberg flipped. Well, it just happened over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Time is the big one there. I 100% agree with you. And you mentioned the suddenly, or gradually, then suddenly. So I kind of always think about like everybody says like the US dollar is sort of like the cleanest shirt in the laundry. And what that says to me is they can slowly exploit US dollar holders the longest because it's not as obvious what is happening to the US dollar holders or like a stronger fiat currency. So yeah, I just wanted to get your opinion on that, Brandon. Do you think that something is going to happen to these stronger fiat currencies, like what we've seen with different the Brazilian real or the Argentinian peso hyperinflated? Now it's a little more stable, but do you think that's going to happen to these fiat currencies, or is it just like this slow drain of people slowly figuring out how painful their existence is because of the currency they use?
I think it's a slow drain until it's not, and I think that's where, like I said earlier, it's gone on way longer than I thought it could. So like I'm not here to say when that happens, but it just feels like the demographic shift with the younger generations, the older generations having so much of the wealth and really not caring. I mean, like again, we know there's some great boomer Bitcoiners. I'm sure there's some silent generation Bitcoiners, but they're not the majority. Obviously, like they don't need it. They're not in pain generally. There are some, but most of these people in the West they're comfortable. Why would I go learn a new system? I'm tired. I want to enjoy my life now. Why am I going to learn this new thing? That's why you look at the ones that do get it and you're like, wow, like good for you. Like I give a lot of credence to people like that who can go through 60, 70, 80 years of their life and then go learn something else. I mean, it's pretty mind blowing. And so I don't think we can discount that. But in saying that, I think it's all confidence. I mean, everything going back to this mindset thing and then confidence. I do think people discount this, like very smart people, even Bitcoiners, that we tend to discount this, the suddenly part of it's just a lack of confidence. I mean, we're getting to this point now. I think everyone can kind of sense it. Even I know none of you guys are in America, but all you got to do is get on Twitter and kind of see what's going on in America, right? Where, I mean, I have conversations all the time that I never had 20 years ago. And I only dreamt of
100%.
Yeah, people
100%.
like they don't believe anything that's going on. I mean, like we're talking black pilled, like people just shutting down and they don't believe anything that's going on. Now that's a whole different story of maybe that was part of the plan, so break the will of the people. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. But in saying that, people are searching and they're starting to really start searching for new systems. Maybe it's, hey, we like some of the old things, the Declaration of Independence or whatever it is, but we need new monetary system. We need something, right? And that those conversations are being had at a level we've never seen, or at least in a long time, the modern era. So that's where the suddenly part comes in, and all you need, to your point, Forrest, like just some of these currencies and what happens, all you need is that inflection point of 1% or 3% or whatever it is of the population saying, yeah, F that. Like, I don't trust the dollar. I don't trust any of this. And then poof, it doesn't matter how many aircraft carriers you have. It don't matter. Nothing can stop hyperinflation, a loss of confidence. And that's where we're headed. We just don't know when it is. But I think it's in the next 5 years, 10 years. I do.
I think there's more to it too. Like just outside of like people going to the grocery store and seeing that the price of meat is double, like just all the files that everybody's kind of aware of now, that's been released for the last couple of weeks that everybody was promised for a while now, but they're seeing it with their own eyes. And I think it's different once you just kind of have this idea that, oh, there's a bunch of elites out there who are doing these really sick things. But when you actually read it and read the things that they're saying in these emails, that's a whole different sensation for people. And that's part of the waking up process. I think that's part of the great awakening that's happening right now, is maybe they don't really care about the money, but they're saying, hey, why am I going to work for 6 months a year to send money to these pedophiles? It just doesn't make any sense in people's heads. And then they start saying, okay, well, where do I go from here? And I think that usually leads, I think the four of us here, myself for sure, I went through the dark days, I guess you'd say, where you just had enough. You're just like, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. And so you start looking for you start going down these different rabbit holes. I first got into silver and gold as an escape from the dollar, and then into crypto, and eventually led to Bitcoin. And I think that all roads do lead to Bitcoin. And I think part of the whole awakening process here is that everybody, even though they're kind of scattered right now, going in different directions, I do think that all roads do lead to Bitcoin, because that's the only thing that saves us from what's rolling out right now, I believe.
Yeah.
And even the BTC, last thing on that is, like, even the BTC, we titled this stream today, BTC Mastermind. And it's not about Bitcoin. It's about be the change. And I think that that's what we want to do with this channel, is hopefully, lead by example, in the sense of, you just got to talk about it. You got to have these conversations, as difficult as they are. You don't want to force it down anybody's throats, but for anybody who's willing to have the conversations, this is how change happens, is by speaking things into existence, talking about truth. Bitcoin to me is the most truthful thing you'll ever find. You can look at every transaction that's happened for the last 17 years on a website. It doesn't get any more transparent than that. And I think that in a world that's full of chaos and uncertainty and just people asking questions and being lied to, come into this realization that they've been lied to about everything for their whole life. And they're presented with this ledger that tells the truth of every transaction that's ever happened there. And people like this who are having real conversations instead of, somebody paying us what to say or being influenced by this other part. It's truth. That's what the world is starving for right now, is truth. And if you can do anything to help with that, I think that, you're better for it, and the world's better for it.
Yeah, and really quick, just to talk about the inflation and just put a bow on kind of what we were talking about too. Like Parker Lewis just recently, he had said that when 1 in 20 people understand Bitcoin, or maybe the problems that we're with, around the world, then you see that suddenly moment. And then I had spoken to Brian DeMint and Matteo Pellegrini of Club Orange, and they had a similar sentiment. And it was, and Parker also had said, when stake is $7, and then the next month it's $7.50, and then the next month it's $8, and you start seeing this. And then Brian and unbeknownst to them, they had very similar things. And where he had said, if you see that single-digit inflation per month, like someone seeing that each month, all of a sudden, where you're having that maybe 10% inflation monthly, that's when you start seeing this rapid, increase in people, the awareness, and people coming to search for the things that we're talking about. And so it just goes back to this again. You can't make the horse drink water. We can bring people there. We put it there, and when people are ready, and so when you mentioned this earlier, when society's ready for it, it will be there for them, and that's our job. Our job is to be there when people are ready.
And I also think it's a good point, because I think most people will only adopt Bitcoin in an indirect way. So they will have maybe a product like Stretch, or they might have Bitcoin in a third layer that they don't even know that Bitcoin is actually underneath it. And so for the few people that are aware of that, for the few people that actually pay attention, study deeper, they can benefit from that so much. If you are now in 2026 here and you can get yourself UTXOs on the main chain of Bitcoin, that's huge in 10 years. We always talk about how many Bitcoin do you need to retire, like 0.1 and all of that. But in the end of the day, with whatever you got, and you get UTXOs on the base chain, you will be freaking awesome in 10, 20 years, because you have something that most people aren't even aware of. And this is a fundamental, I always compare it to having a piece of the TCP/IP protocol where everything else is kind of built on top. It's good or bad that we didn't have the TCP/IP token that was kind of launched in 1990, and you could buy that or not. Otherwise it would be now I guess Bitcoin is kind of that TCP/IP token now to the internet. But yeah, that's how I look at it. And I'm like, yeah, if you can control your own UTXOs on the base layer, and you have enough to do that and not be dust, like, you will be fine.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And, you know, I always tell people, first time I bought Bitcoin was back in 2017. And I guess I had fiat exposure to Bitcoin in a Coinbase account because I didn't even know that self-custody was a thing. And that, you know, and I ended up trading it, selling it, starting my own business instead of continuing to learn about what it was. And then, you know, came back into it years later and gone down the entire rabbit hole. But it's this process of learning that you do think you own Bitcoin when you buy it on Coinbase and hold it in an exchange. You don't even know that there's a different way to hold Bitcoin and that it's a bearer asset. And that concept, like, what does that even mean? What is the knock-on effects of having the ability to have a bearer asset money and participate in a neutral monetary network and not just an internal ledger on a crypto casino, right? It's a complete paradigm shift, and it takes a lot of learning to get there. And I think that's part of the time as well. You know, Brandon, you've mentioned like the generational change, and I do think you're totally spot on there. But there's just the individual change that takes years as well to even get to the point of understanding how to own Bitcoin properly.
Yeah. I mean, again, all of us have been in Bitcoin, you know, 5-10 years, and you're still learning stuff every day. You know, like it just doesn't end. And that's, you know, part of the journey of life. And school teaches you that it ends. Once you're out of school, all of a sudden learning ends. And that's where a lot of society's at, right? And so it's a lot of this auditing. Like, society is about to go through a major audit, you know, like, and they're about to have to account for all their sins, you know, spiritual and secular, you know. And so it's wild too. The other the Bitcoin has to be worked for, and I want to say that again, like, whether it's your previous time and energy or future time, currency printer that the elites have, the quintillionaires at the top, the people.
I think you have some hiccup, Brandon.
Damn it! I was hoping that was just me.
Yeah, we're only getting about half of what you say.
Yeah, like
the internet's cutting out.
But I think you said, if I'm not wrong,
yeah, go ahead.
If I'm not wrong, I think you said that you have to work for Bitcoin. I think this is a really good point because, like, no matter, like, of course, like, you can also buy it with fiat, and the fiat might not be like you might have gotten the fiat because of a handout or something like that, but like, that's not Bitcoin's fault. And this is a true change in this system. If I got the parts right, what you said, Brandon, like, you have to work for Bitcoin. There's no cheating. Even if you have 1,000 Bitcoin, the next 1 Bitcoin costs for you the same thing that it costs for everyone. And this is, I think, a very, very important part is this proof of work, because people always ask, like, okay, but Bitcoin is still like the same way distributed as the fiat system, and like, what does it really change? This is what changes. The proof of work aspect. You have to work for Bitcoin. There's no cheating. There's no staking. Just because you have 1,000 Bitcoin doesn't mean the next Bitcoin is easier for you to get the same way as you have. Like, if you have 0.1 Bitcoin, the next Bitcoin is the same energy that you need to put in as if you have already 1,000 Bitcoin. I mean, there's a difference. If you have 1,000 Bitcoin, you might have a company where it makes it easy to buy, but all of that. So I think this is a very important point, that it's a proof of work system and you need to put in energy,
which is how it should be. That's nature, right? That's why I like value-added economics, like Austrian economics, so much, is because that's what nature is. You plant a tree, you have a seed, a tree seed is at $2 because you haven't put any time. There's no work into that. There's no sunlight. There's no rain. It's $2. And then you get a bigger plant and it might cost $20 because there's some work that's gone into that, some energy that's gone into that. And then you get a full tree and you can chop that up into firewood for thousands of dollars. That's nature. That's value-added economics. And I think that's how life should be. And I think we're finally going back to that. We haven't had that for 100 years. Everybody talks about 1971 as a big date, but it was really the 1930s, I think, when we really went off the gold standard unofficially. 40 years later, we went off officially, but it's been an artificial world for 100 years. And I'm really excited myself to be part of, in any small way that I am, helping build that new hard money standard that we're going into. And I just think it literally flips every single aspect of society on its head when you actually have a currency that's backed by something that requires energy. That's what it is. That's what it comes down to. And thankfully, we do have Bitcoin. And so all these other fiat games and UBIs and everything can kind of happen. But as long as you're holding Bitcoin and UTXO, especially in cold storage, all that value is going to eventually flow into that over time. And it's not something that can be rushed. It's something that will take time, but it's something that you can be a part of. We're all part of this Bitcoin network here. And I think that's why we wanted to start the show, is to, help other people who are going through this right now. And the other thing too, that you guys said that I really liked was, if you look at your Bitcoin stack today, that's pretty much an accumulation of all the work and value that you've added to the world up until this point. That's what it captures. It captures the amount of value that you've added so far in your life. And I think people really just have a misconception of that. They might drive down a neighborhood and see a bunch of big houses or shitty houses, and they think that's a direct reflection of the person in there. But it's the people living in those houses. That's a direct proportion relationship to how much value they've added to the world. They're choosing to store some of that value in their house. If you're in Bitcoin, that's a direct representation of how much value you've added so far. And like you said there, Robin, in the future, when you're adding more value, doing more work, there's no shortcuts here. You can't earn yield on it. There's no matter how much Bitcoin you have, you're not going to get more interest income coming in because of it. That next Bitcoin that you get is market value. It's a free market. And I think the world needs that more than ever right now.
I 100% agree. You guys want to keep it going? We can, but I think like around like the 1.5 hour mark, we should keep it, because I feel like we could talk also for 5 hours. So we have to kind of inorganically cut it somehow. Really cool. Like if you guys like it, this. I think this will be a long-term thing that we do on every Tuesday at that very time. It's 8 p.m. European time. I think it's like 1 p.m. in Canada. Like what are the time zones that you guys are in?
11 Pacific Standard Time for me.
Ours is on the West Coast.
Yes.
Yep.
It's 2 for me right now. Rajat would be 3 p.m. And Brandon, are you East or West?
Rajat in the East, yeah.
Yeah, so like this is around the time that we will do it on every Tuesday. If it's hidden, we might even make our own channel for that, because there's like one thing we see all the comments, and this is why I like having like one channel for something, because then everyone that watches this thing can kind of talk to each other. It's the only thing that I don't like about having the stream on many different. Like I would love that. Kind of YouTube combines that and like has all the things together, but yeah, like it's been amazing, and it's been really, really cool to have you guys all here. And so any last words from each of you?
My last words, this is amazing stuff, and I can't wait for just more collaborations. The last 6 months have been awesome because there's way more collaborations in the Bitcoin space, and we need much more of it. And we do, to Robin's point, we see all the comments. We'll talk about BIP 110. We'll talk about David Bailey. We'll talk about all this stuff, guys. So don't you worry. Don't get your panties in a bunch too much. We'll take care of you guys. So, oh man, too good.
Yeah, well said. I agree. I love these live streams. I think that in my eyes, anyways, and I've heard Robin speak on this before, but I just think live streams are the future here, because we can interact. We can see people.
Yeah.
In an internet that's going to be full of slop, AI, and we're already kind of starting to see that. I think something like this, I talked about truth being so important, but just like real humans speaking, imperfections, stuttering, that's what people like. I do it all the time. I try to, the worst thing that I watch on the internet is something that's so perfectly coordinated, reading from a script, all the fancy things. I just don't relate to that at all, because I know it's not real. And so I think that doing these live streams, having people in the chat, we'll have to figure out a good strategy for like answering questions and things like that. But we'll come up with it. This was the first episode, and it was an absolute pleasure to be here with you boys today.
And just one thing which is, I think, really, really cool, because here I've watched a little bit the statistics next to it, and we are since like half an hour around the 250, 300 different people in the live stream.
Oh, nice.
This is really, really huge. Like having 300 like-minded people that are in this together and learning and teaching of each other. Like I think this is something really cool. And if we can do it like every single Tuesday, same time, will be fun. Sometimes 3 people, sometimes 4 people, sometimes 5 people, as we have time. This will be fun. Forrest, any last words from you two?
Just reiterate what you guys said. I think this was a lot of fun. Thanks everybody for tuning in, checking out the first of hopefully many, and check out each one of our channels. We got lots of content. Continue studying Bitcoin, continue learning, stay curious, and save in Bitcoin for the long term.
Know what you believe, and believe what you know. Yeah.
What was that, Brandon? I missed that.
Know what you believe. Know what you believe and believe what you know.
Love that. I just want to say one more thing too, because the idea here was BTC Mastermind, be the change. But Mastermind is actually a concept from Napoleon Hill. Rajat mentioned it earlier. But it's the idea of bringing minds together. So Robin has different skill sets that he's working on in his world. Forrest as well. Brandon, myself, and people in the chat. And I think that when you bring these minds together, it forms something new. That's something very powerful. And so we want to share tools that we come across, resources that we have conversations that we think will be valuable to other people. And I think that this mastermind is going to grow into something much bigger than the 4 of us. And that's kind of the intention of this. So that's what I got.
And also the distribution of, like, we have America, we have Canada, we have Europe. Maybe we can get like Australians and like other people also over time in. I think this is the major thing, I think someone in the beginning mentioned it, the pleb chat, mastermind group kind of a thing. So really cool. Brandon, you wanted to
no, I mean, Bitcoin is a humility test at the end of the day. It's not an IQ test. And so I think the big thing is I would probably, I'll put words in everyone's mouth here, and Rajat's too. My job is to fire myself from this at some point. Yes. I hope a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, I don't have to do this. I hope that someone 10x, 100x smarter is out there in the fiat world somewhere, which we know they are, and they come in and they do this job much better than I do, much better than Jor does, and Forrest, and Rajat, and Robin. Like Joe Rogan will be doing the Bitcoin podcast at some point, right? And like that's the goal. The goal is to find these other people that are much smarter, much better communicators, or better looking, whatever it is, and they are able to orange pill 10 million people because of who they are, and they're out there. And it's our job to just chug along while it's our time, and then all of a sudden here we are. And that's what you guys just made me think of, that with the chat, the plebs in the chat, everyone masterminding together and being together, a decentralized voluntary system. Voluntary system. No one has to do this, and we're here.
We're not getting paid to be here either.
We're not getting. Yeah, this the signal in all the noise, and that should tell you something and where we're headed. So it's gonna be fun.
I mean, there's some ad revenue I think that we get, but not a lot.
Yeah, a couple bucks. Yeah,
40 cents.
Get a coffee at Starbucks.
Yeah,
where no one knows you.
For 40 cents, I used to buy 8 5-cent candies. Now buys half a 5-cent candy. That's the world that we're in.
I can't find the comment. Oh shit! There was a really good comment that said, "How many different beard types?"
I saw that.
That was so funny. It really made me laugh, because I saw the picture, and like each of us has like a different. Like I think Joe and I have like the most similar ones, but he has better. His beard is growing better than mine, and that's why it looks different. All the different beard types, and Rajat has all the different one. So I think I wanted to end with that comment, but I can't find it anymore.
That might be like a good logo for us, like 5 heads with all different facial hairs on them.
Yeah, there you go. Just the facial.
I would love that, and then BTC, be the change as a logo. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for coming on and being here with us. We will be back.
Awesome. Thanks, fellas.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.